guys and everyone, welcome to another Charisma video, and this video will be a bit more personal because I want to discuss some of my worldviews that I have in real life outside of my combine persona, so to speak. And it basically, it is also the reason why I do affiliate myself with the combine, right? Why I consider myself a combine, like a loyal collaborator of the combine, right? And why I wouldn't really hesitate to join them in the first place, if Half-Life 2 was real. So, I hold two worldviews, or philosophies, and that is misanthropy and anti-natalism. So you probably know what misanthropy is, right? Misanthropy is a general dislike of humans, because I myself, I don't like humans, okay? I really do not like the species. I do not, okay? And second of all, anti-natalism, most of you might not really know what that is. It's a bit more niche word, but anti-natalism is basically the opinion that giving birth to another sentient living being is wrong. And here in this video, I want to explain why I have these worldviews, okay? So let's start with misanthropy. In my opinion, people are pretty terrible and very hypocritical as well. Now obviously I'm hypocritical as well, right? Because I do, align myself with the Universal Union and stuff like that, but I do myself don't really hold on to all of the values in my personal life, or I do not really fulfill these values in my personal life, right? I mean, I'm kinda, if you would know me in real life, what I'm like in real life, a lot of people could probably question me, but that doesn't really change my loyalty to the Universal Union. But we're not really here to discuss that. What I'm here to discuss is misanthropy. First of all, I don't really like people because of the stuff they do to each other, the stuff they do to other species, I would really say that humans are really the cancer of this planet, I really think they are, because they consider anthropocentrism, right? People are extremely anthropocentric, which from evolutionary standpoint makes sense, because every species is kind of obsessed with themselves. Anthropocentrism is basically extremely valuing, or being extremely loyal and happy, about humans and being human and stuff like that, and putting humans, first and foremost in literally every situation. And I mean, you could say that every species really are like this, because from evolutionary standpoint, every species are trying to put themselves first to preserve themselves, and obviously humans as sloppy, kind of disgusting biological organisms are no different, right? I mean, yeah, but my problem is that people possess the cognitive capability to know that they aren't the greatest anymore. I mean, it's 21st century, we're not monkeys anymore. We should be something more, and yet people think, even with the cognitive capabilities, that they're still the greatest, and that the universe revolves only around the freaking monkeys in suits called people, right? And people being hypocritical because they literally hunt down like smaller inferior species like like cattle and animals and shit like that, to eat them. But then, for example, if the Combine came, to integrate us into the universal union, people would be like, oh, you can't do that, we have feelings. So, well, did you ask about the pain that cow has to go through just so you can eat it? Well, no, you did not. So, and you did it because of pragmatism. You ate that animal because of pragmatism, right? Because you want to survive, you want to eat. So why should really the Combine give us any consideration in the first place? They're not here because they hate us. They're here because they want to repurpose us for their own benefit and so that we can be something greater, right? So, hypocrisy and the extreme egoism and anthropocentrism human species hold for itself is really what's bothering me. And overall, I don't like the human nature, I don't like what people are like, I mean, I do have close friends and everything, and they're pretty much exempt from this philosophy, this ideology I hold, but they really, they really are exempt, but other people, overall in general, I think these species are just fucking terrible. Genuinely, except my friends, I don't really feel empathy towards anyone, Sometimes I'm thinking people genuinely deserve the suffering, So that's kinda the first thing, and overall what people do to each other, people having to be dicks all the time to each other, that is really what's kinda bothering me, and that's why I don't like these species, I think sometimes too much evolution is bad, So that's kind of first of all. Second of all, it has to do with anti-natalism. So as I said, anti-natalism is the philosophy that holds the worldview that bringing new people, for example, new people into this world is wrong because they do not consent to being born, and you're essentially forcing them to go through pain and suffering in life just because you want to have kids, whether it is because of societal, pressure, peer pressure, oh, you could have kids, whatever others do it, this and that, First of all, or second of all, it's because you're selfish, because a lot of parents, they do not want to admit it, but I think a lot of people have kids for purely selfish reasons, because they want others to take care of them, when they're old and shit like that, and I don't really agree with this. I myself, I don't really have any siblings, right? I mean, I was born an only child, and yeah, I'm an only child. I don't really have any siblings, so yeah, back to the misanthropy. You can say that a lot of it comes from, my lifestyle, in my personal life, I'm very isolated, I'm still a virgin, and everything, but I don't really think that's possible, that's important, is the word, not possible, but important, and a lot of people could say that I'm just a butthurt, butthurt guy that just, is isolated and blames others for it, but, I mean, I'm not really happy that I'm isolated, I think I shouldn't really be that isolated, but my isolation sometimes has to do with my worldview, with my ideologies, because I can try, to go meet new people, but sometimes it's just hard because they're incompatible with my values, right? Second of all, back to misanthropy. Sorry, back to anti-natalism. So a lot of people are basically, just selfish. They want others, they want their kids to do like stuff for them, and genuinely, when you listen to a lot of people explain the reason why they want to have kids, they're like, oh, because I want this and that, It's most of the time it's of them, but they don't really take into consideration that their kid will have to go through suffering in life, because anti-natalism, its core principle is, or core principles are, that you shouldn't really bring a new human into this world, right? Because if they do not exist, then the absence of pain is good. The absence of joy they could potentially experience if they were alive doesn't matter, because they're not alive, so they cannot realize, or they cannot experience joy in the first place, so it doesn't fucking matter for them, And if they're alive, then sure, they can experience joy, but they can also experience pain and suffering, and pain and suffering usually, outnumbers, the good stuff in life, so that's kind of the core mechanic, of anti-natalism, and I do heavily agree with it, especially that, even though, I have joy from, doing, stuff, I have hobbies, right? I have hobbies, I have a Garry's Mod, I have Half-Life, I have Combine, which is good, that's the good stuff, that's like the joy part of life, right? For example, hobbies, and stuff like that. But then you have pain, because, in my personal life, I've been dealing with a lot of depression, isolation. Overall, in the past year or so, I've been actually quite miserable, or at least in the past 2 weeks, I've been, especially miserable in the past 2 weeks. I've been abandoned, or not abandoned, but kind of lost a valuable friendship, and very valuable friendship, and that's basically the suffering of life. Just to sum it up, so even though I have all my hobbies that I, love very much, I still have to go through suffering in life, and that suffering can impair how you enjoy your hobbies, and other stuff, so that's kind of why, G-Man is over there. So, what else should I say? I think that if you're forced into this world, genuinely, you're born, I don't really think you owe anyone anything. That is my doctrine I operate on. I believe that when you're born, you don't really owe anyone anything. You don't owe anything to your parents, because, you could say, your parents are paying the bills for you, they're paying, other stuff, so you survive. But they're solving a problem they created for themselves. They're solving a burden they created for themselves because, of their actions. But you have nothing to do with it, you didn't choose if you want to be born or not, but they willingly chose to to basically bring you into this world without your consent, and now they're blaming you that they have to do stuff for you. Well, how can you be blamed for that? You know, they're actually solving a problem they caused, you know, themselves. So, you know, so that is just kind of my philosophy I operate on. You don't owe anyone anything. It's kind of like, you know, you don't have to keep thanking your parents, you know, for shit. You don't have to thank them for anything, in my opinion. You know, they're the ones who force you here. They're the ones who are causing potential suffering and stuff. You know, personally, you don't really owe them anything, like absolutely anything. You know. The reason why I would join the Combine is that, as I explained in my previous videos, the Combine can at least give us a greater purpose, you know, because right now, in real life, I would say humans are kind of like being wasteful, you know, being restrained by biology, by instinct and all shit like that. Well, you could say funny coming that from someone that acts on instinct 24/7 like me. Well, first of all, I can't really help it, and second of all, that's my stuff, you know, so it doesn't matter. Well, what matters is not that you can't control yourself all the time, because it's not possible, you know. What matters is that you are willing to you know, that you're willing to give up your instinct and give up that instinct to something greater than all of us. Sorry if my words don't make too much sense right now, I'm kinda tired. As you can see, it's 3 a.m. and yeah. So I would eagerly join the Combine, you know, the Universal Union, because I think humanity and being restrained by biology and humanity, I would literally say it's anything to be proud of, nor something to defend, you know, because it is just a bunch of crap, a bunch of suffering, you know, and not just suffering, but like ineffective bullshit, you know, that just isn't good for quite literally anything. So that's why I would willingly give up mine, even at the cost, you know, of me, like, you know, not being, like, able to experience, like, the potentially positive, you know, things of being human. Like, I don't know, the only positive things I can think of about humanity, really, or about being human, the only positive things I can think of are just, like, what, sex, maybe, you know, and connection with others, but even I would be willing to give up even that, because there's really, you know, the benefits of being integrated into the Universal Union, in my opinion, completely outnumber the very few positive things about being human, you know, about being, you know, bounded by biology and instinct, and biology is a really, like, or like at least the kind of biology we have here on Earth is very outdated. it runs on primitive programs, you know, like, I would say forced evolution is really the only way to overcome it, and yeah, there's still some idiots that would willingly fight against it, you know, like rebels. So to kind of sum it up, I'm a misanthrope because of what people are like, and what they do, and how they think. And I'm an anti-natalist because I think it should be a fucking crime to bring someone into this world and even force them to be here and be your slave, you know. That's how governments work. You know, governments don't want you to die not because they care about you, they literally couldn't give less shit about your well-being, they only act like they care about your well-being so that they can keep you for as long as possible, so they can work for them for as long as possible and generate as much money as possible. That's literally it, there's nothing more, you know. And I'm against that idea because this system is created by selfish people. It's created purely for someone's selfish indulgence or power trip, you know. Not for anything greater like the Universal Union has to offer, so that's kinda it, but I don't really think I should be probably dragging the Combine into this too much. This is purely about my worldviews, or as I already explained, basically like this, you know. I'm an anti-natalist also because you're basically forced into this world, forced to endure the suffering, and you're forced to stay here for as long as possible just because of someone else's selfish self-interest, you know. And that's what's really pissing me off, like, once you cannot see through the bullshit, you know, you can't really think of society the same anymore, and that's kind of what I'm experiencing. And even though I want to meet new people, like, as I said, I'm very isolated, you know, I don't really want to go into too many personal details or personal topics in here, you know, because first of all, I'm not very comfortable with sharing it, even though I would say I have a pretty loyal audience. You know, I also don't want to make it seem that I'm using the Combine, you know, or these kind of radical philosophies, ideologies as escapism, because what I see on the internet, you know, is that a lot of misanthropes and anti-natalists, or like even Combine fans like me, are labeled as escapists, that people that purely just put on a tough facade to mask their like social failure, you know, or like their lack of like you know, like being content with their life. That's not because, or that's not the reason for me, you know. It is not. Let me tell you, it is not, okay? I'm not a misanthrope or anti-natalist and a Combine loyalist as some sort of like a childish, edgy coping mechanism. For me, it's because I genuinely, you know, align myself with this ideology and with how these systems like the Universal Union work. Now, Universal Union isn't really about ideology, you know. The Universal Union, the Combine, really gonna give less fuck about how loyal you are to them, you know, because it's not a stereotypical human fascist, you know. like faction or anything like that, you know. Loyalty is a human emotion, right? Loyalty is a purely human construct. The Combine doesn't know anything like that because obviously they don't even need to give a shit about that because their goal is exactly to purge all unnecessary human, you know, constructs, emotions, you know, social constructs, and like stuff that doesn't really bring anyone anything, or the stuff that doesn't really have any, you know, like actual, like military, you know, value. You know what I mean? So yeah. I like this AR-2 bro so much, low-key. So yes. Sorry if I'm kind of just like speaking maybe like gibberish from time to time. As I said, it's 3 AM, I'm kind of tired, but I really wanted to make this video because I think this needs to be talked about more, and I don't really think these ideologies should be taboo either. Now, why they're taboo? Because instinct, because self-preservation, right? Because subconscious, you know, bullshit. That's why they're taboo, but for people who actually bother to look at them through a purely utilitarian lens, or like factual lens, and not emotional subconscious lens, it does probably make a lot of sense if you look at it that way. Yeah. Souls here. Well, that's service, okay. And it's not really that like I'm some sort of like psychopath, you know, or anything like that. I'm actually able to form deep connections with people with the opposite gender, you know. I'm capable of that, but I have these certain ideologies and philosophies that many people would find incompatible with their normie, you know, world, like normies, bro. I would say normies is really the issue of normies and humanists and pro-natalists and all that like garbage, you know. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say, and I hope this made some sense. So just to put it into conclusion, to conclude it, you know, I'm a misanthrope because I don't like the general human nature and what people are like and what they do, and you know, like I would say we really are the only species that are able to self-destruct themselves like this, which is absolutely pathetic. It goes even against biology, you know, like, yeah, I think we're really the garbage of this planet, the cancer of this planet, you know, like, genuinely, this planet could have been such a better place without humans, you know, and second of all, I'm an anti-natalist because I do align and I do heavily agree with the premise of anti-natalism, which is that the complete absence of suffering and joy is the optimal outcome, because absence of suffering is good and absence of joy doesn't matter because there is no one to experience that absence or joy in the first place, so yeah. And And I'm also an anti-natalist and misanthrope at the same time, because I don't like how you're forced to be here and endure the system that basically is just made to serve selfish individuals, you know. They just use others for cheap labor and shit like that, for their own selfish needs, for their own very human selfish needs. You know. And yes, thanks for watching and for